this fluff of this microphone is in my mouth. Okay, this is the cursed episode. So not only have we had a video, the sound disappeared, we've had to cancel it 2 times.
Yes.
Then the first recording has gone completely wrong, and now I'm laying in bed with like a half set up rig. So hopefully it's all going to work.
Join David and Ross as they become discombobulated in Dorset. From pixies to poltergeists, witches to woodrows, hear them explore the legends, folklore, and outright weirdness of their own county. This is Dark Dorset, a podcast of weird Dorset.
Hello, I'm Ross. Oh, there we go. The curse continues.
Sorry.
Oh, and the coffin. God's sake, the
Coffin.
Yeah, the coffin. Hello, I'm Ross in Dorchester on the south coast of England.
And I'm David in Wareham, just up the road.
And on this episode, we look at the Phantom Centurion of Thorncombe Wood. Not a hard one to say for someone who can't do that. Make a difference between their th and the th, THs and their Fs when they're talking. But yes, the Phantom Centurion of Thorncombe Wood. And there's a PH as well. How do you say a PH and a TH? What's the difference?
A PH is th, like an F,
right.
And a TH is th.
Okay. Right.
But Phantom is spelt with a PH, usually.
Yeah.
But the beer I've got today is called Phantom, and that's spelt with an F.
Oh, okay, so where's that beer come from, David? What's that label?
It came from a beer subscription service that I subscribe to purely because I can't cancel it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pale ale, it's 5.3%, and it's cloudy looking, and it's chewy, and it's not really my kind of beer.
What's chewy? What's a chewy beer?
It's just kind of thick and meaty and dense.
So,
do you know?
Would you describe me as chewy?
It's not light and crisp and refreshing. I would describe some parts of you as chewy.
Chewy, okay.
Yeah, as other parts, Chewbacca, chewy.
Well, my lovely sister bought me a whole selection pack of Jurassic Brewery
Lovely.
beers.
Yeah,
and I thought it's going to last me like loads of episodes of the podcast, but I've drunk nearly all of them now. So one of the remaining one is Dorset Knob, which I'm drinking at the moment, which is 3.9%. And I don't know any of the descriptive words apart from it's nice.
It is. I think we've drunk that at the Dorset show before in the beer tent. Be careful not to spill it in your bed there, Ross, as you recline.
Yeah, so we should point out that I am now podcasting from my bed because today the internet up in the loft sort of office space, which I work from and podcast from, for some reason it's just completely not working with the internet today. I got no idea what's going on with that. So this is a best bitter. This is light and amber in colour, smells hoppy and floral, and tastes malty and zesty.
But best of all, it's called Knob.
Mm-hmm. There we are. That's me tasting Knob.
That sounds good.
Yeah,
excellent. Yeah. So this podcast is a bit weird because we went to the location ages and ages ago.
That was cursed as well because the day we was meant to be originally going to see the location, it said it was going to be raining all weekend, so we didn't go. And I woke up and it was glorious sunshine, but it was too late for me to rearrange. So then we went again several weeks later, and it said it was going to be nice weather, and then it rained when we went there.
And it rained.
Yeah. So this episode is very, very late, and the video's beaten up now for probably nearly a month. But bear with us.
Yeah. So whereabouts did we go, Ross? Because that's near you, isn't it?
Yeah, Thorncombe Wood, which is with a TH, which is an ancient piece of woodland, which is famous because it's got a Hardy's Cottage, which Thomas Hardy is our famous author.
Was he born there?
and he was born in this cottage. So it's the woods next to where the cottage where he was born. I was going to say, I'm afraid to say, I've never read a Thomas Hardy book, and I really should.
Yeah, you really should. Then he can tell me all about it. I was very impressed by the woods because where I am in my part of Dorset, the woods are very coniferous, very kind of sandy soil and lots of pine needly evergreen trees. And Thorncombe Woods was amazing because it had some proper ancient oak in it, didn't it? Some really marvellous trees and really peculiar shapes. Yeah. Trees that had fallen over maybe 100 years ago and then started growing at a right angle and shoots coming out at all angles.
It's fantastic.
Really superb.
It's the woods which my wife, who grew up in Weymouth, so I would say Thorncombe's probably halfway between Weymouth and Dorchester. That was the woods which they always used to go to as children, and they got a tradition of playing what they call pom-pom and what we used to call block when I was younger. What did you call that game?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So I
don't know either of those names.
So people go up. So one person's it, and they're like on a post or a tree or something. Yeah. Everyone else has to go and hide, and then everyone has to get to block. Well, when I was a kid, you'd have to get there and say block 1, 2, 3 in. So without the other person. So if you see the person hiding, you've got to go and run and press touch the thing, and say block David 1, 2, 3, or you block yourself in, and the last person can save all. Did you have that game when you was a kid?
I do remember the game, and I remember the 1, 2, 3 bit, but I've no idea of the word that we used to precede it with. Yeah. I can't remember that.
It's one of those regional things. I remember one of the things when I went to university. It was like, did you have a game called Bundle when you was a kid?
Yeah. Where you just jumped on top of everyone.
Yeah, someone would shout bundle, and then you'd all jump on top of each other, and you'd hope that you're not on the bottom. Whereas the people in Wales called it pylon. So, and I also found out that they called Paul Mags cop mags, which I thought was an interesting colloquialism.
Nice.
Yeah. So why were we talking about cop mags? We didn't find any cop mags in the Thorncombe Woods, did we?
We didn't. No, and you've picked up that knob again.
No, Thorncombe Woods. Frustratingly, it is National Trust, but you can't use your National Trust car park pass, which just always catches me out.
And the interesting thing about Thorncombe Woods, if it wasn't for the main road, dual carriageway going into Dorchester, it would join up with Yellowham Woods.
Yes, which is episode 1.
One big woods, which is episode 1, where we looked for the woodrows. And maybe we'll talk about it later, but if you watch the video, there's a very interesting moment when we have a realization. Yeah. Cool. So let's talk about what we went to see in Thorncombe Woods. And what we went to see was we'd read about a story concerning a phantom Roman centurion.
So I read about it in this brilliant book called Mysterious Dorset by Rodney Legg. This has been donated to the podcast by our friend Gareth. So hi, Gareth, if you're listening to this.
Thank you, Gareth.
Which has got a huge amount of story. There's enough material on here to keep us going until we die. Especially at the rate we're putting these out. We will never get to the end of this. But
remember what's happening when one of us dies. We have 2 weeks to make our ghostly presence known to the other.
Yes.
It's got to be done in 2 weeks so we can expect it and wait for it.
Yeah.
And after 2 weeks, we'll just be like looking for it and everything. So we've made that pact.
Yeah, there will be one posthumous episode of Dorset where we report back whether this happened or not.
I better learn how to use the tech then in case it's me.
I can remember Paul Daniels doing a whole thing about Houdini saying he would come back from the dead and leave a message to his to Houdini's wife, and she would hold a seance every Halloween. It was meant to give a message back, and Paul did like a thing. But speaking of Paul Daniels, did I tweet it to you that I reckon Debbie McGee, who is
the beautiful
Debbie McGee, it needs a bit of money for something because loads of Paul Daniels stuff has suddenly gone up for auction on this website, including his toupee. You could
you can pay for his toupee.
You can pay for his toupee. Loads of his old tricks. Loads and loads of like posters and his collection of old magicians posters and all his magic books and stuff. I was just thinking, he's moving house and trying to clearing out that loft.
Downsizing.
Yeah, I was quite tempted to get one of his posters, but I never know what to do with online auctions and how it works. And,
I imagine getting it through the post and thinking, I like it, but not a lot.
Well, I think we should end the podcast there. David, it's not going to get any better than that.
Sorry. Okay, so Thorncombe Wood, the
Phantom Centurion.
The Phantom Centurion. So the story is, I think it was in the 50s. You can fact check in the book while I talk about this.
I'm going to find the story.
Tell me I'm wrong about everything. So I think it's in the 50s. A group of boys from a borstal were camping in Thorncombe Woods with some adults looking after them.
So what's a borstal, David, for our Australian overseas listeners?
I think it is a children's home for badly behaved youngsters.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I was always threatened with borstal as a child. Not by the police, by my own parents.
Yeah, when we were told to eat our dinners because there were starving people in Africa.
Yeah, my parents would pretend that they were picking up the phone and ringing them to come and get me.
On speed dial. You did get speed dial on a rotary phone. Anyway, so you're flicking through there. I'm going to carry on. I think it was in the 50s. There's a group of kids with their adult leaders, supervisors, camping in the woods. And they've been there a couple of nights. And then one night after dark, one of the young boys gets very agitated, excited, and goes into the adults' tent saying, "There's a ghost outside. There's a ghost outside." And the adults ignored this kid, but he remained in this excited state, a scared state, and went back to the adults to say, "Come quick, you must see this." So eventually they came out of the tent, and the adults saw it as well. And what they saw was a ghost of a figure wearing a Roman Centurion uniform, and it was a few yards away behind a few trees, looking at them, and it was floating about 2 foot off the ground.
Yes, October 1969. This happened, so pretty good.
Thanks.
Yeah. So it says here, no less than 14 people made the sighting of the Roman soldier. So these boys were from Guy Marsh Borstal in Shaftesbury, and they were on a working camp. And as you said, the boy rushed into the caravan, so there was a ghost in the trees. But so they said that the Roman soldier was complete with shield, sword, toga, and helmet, and was standing in the air about 2 feet off the ground. And they went away, got a torch, and when they came back with it, and then he quickly disappeared. So, interesting. We've heard about ghosts walking through walls before, because the reason behind this is that at some point that wall wasn't there, so maybe a building's been put in its place, or a door has been bricked up. So, the explanation for the floating Centurion was the fact that the level of the ground from Roman times has actually dropped down since then, and the area where the Centurion was seen was on the site of a Roman road, which we went to go and find, and you can't see the Roman road anymore, so it doesn't look like it has sort of eroded away over a period of time, but you can definitely see where the Roman road.
It's a kind of gravel track, isn't it, in a totally straight line. And it's quite nice because it goes up the hill and then it goes along high ground, which apparently the Romans used to do so they could, as all the legions were marching to and fro, they would be seen and they would scare.
A display road, apparently.
Yes.
Yeah, to intimidate the locals. So we went up there and saw nothing, as usual. But it was a lovely walk. And all the years we've been going to Thorncombe Woods, like I said, it's been a tradition for my wife's family, and it's something which the tradition is carried on with our own family. We take the kids up there to have a run around in the woods and stuff. We never actually gone all the way I haven't gone all the way to the top of the hill onto the Roman road, which goes onto a heath. And it looks like it goes quite a long way. And yeah, it's a lovely walk, and I'm going to be going up that way.
Apart from the horses that were hidden in the trees.
The horses are cool.
I don't like.
Yeah.
Question for you, Ross.
Yes.
How many soldiers did a Roman centurion look after?
So I know it's not 100, but that's what people think it's going to be 100. How many is it, David?
It's 80. It started off as 50 or 60, and then it kind of they kind of set on 80. But why it should be 100?
Yeah,
shouldn't it?
So do we know why they're called centurions?
No.
Yeah,
I didn't get that far.
And also, how do they know it's a centurion rather than just a regular Roman soldier?
I think the answer should be with the dress.
Yeah.
Because a legionnaire would be far more plain. He wouldn't have the cloak, he wouldn't have a plume in the helmet. But I think that's just we've seen a centurion.
Yeah,
you know?
it's shorthand for that. So I've been listening to podcasts about Roman Dorchester and watched a couple of YouTube videos about Roman Dorchester today. So Dorchester was called Durnovaria at the time by the Romans rather than Dorchester itself. So one of the things I found interesting is we've got there's the biggest hill fort in the country is just up the road from us at Maiden Castle, and that's where the Iron Age people lived. And when the General Vespian invaded England or Britannia or Britain, whatever it's called, that's where the Britons were. They reckon that they had some battles with them because they have found skeletons with like ballista sort of tips into the skeleton. So ballista is like a massive crossbow, basically. Wish they would have just been fired at these guys as they rounded off the hill. But Dorchester was built, which is just a little bit away from Maiden Castle, near a river, so they could have access to water.
So they can go fishing.
Exactly. And have actual, have to walk miles for water and sanitation and all that kind of stuff. But in Dorchester, there's some ruins of a Roman townhouse, which is one of the sort of the biggest and best examples of a well-to-do Roman or a British person living in the Roman style, where they would have lived. But something I found out today is that when they were excavating it, because they were going to be building the town hall and the council buildings there, and they found this Roman townhouse there with some amazing mosaics in, and they moved they completely moved where they were going to build the building, so they couldn't disturb that, and apparently that's something which they wouldn't normally have done. But when they was excavating it, they found that there was a skeleton of a baby underneath the ground of the kitchen. So apparently, you weren't allowed to bury anyone within the walls of the town. I'm not sure if it was a superstitious thing or it was a to do with sanitation. But all the graveyards are up in Poundbury, which is another. It's a little bit outside of Dorchester. There's now a big development there.
Graveyard.
Yeah, and apparently when they were building Poundbury, they dug up like hundreds of skeletons because that's where everyone would be buried.
Yeah,
which makes you think, why aren't there ghosts in Poundbury? And there's just one Roman stuck up on a hill in Thorncombe. But apparently, an infant, a baby, when they were born, they were seen as being pure. And it was actually good luck for you to bury a dead child in your house. I'm assuming it's like you wouldn't kill the child in order to do it. But
we hope not.
But I was talking to my daughter about this today, and she said, "Oh, that's horrible." And I said, "Well, maybe it was a way of dealing with the sort of the loss of a child, and actually, keeping it near to you."
Yes.
Having it as saying it's actually trying to see a good thing and say like, well, that pure spirit is in the house, and it's with us, and it's making it a good place to be. And then my youngest child said, what do you do when you move? I was like, apparently, also in this Roman townhouse, they got some unique mosaics. Because apparently, when you want a mosaic for your house or your building,
you go to the Mosaic Man.
Well,
Mosaics are us.
You would go to a mosaic place and you would pick from a pattern. They wouldn't
like
make it
like a tattoo parlor.
Exactly. You pick one. So apparently, when you look at lots of buildings, they've all got the same mosaic because they're all just taken off of a set of designs. But this townhouse has got some stuff, ones which they haven't seen before. So they reckon whoever was in there was rich enough in order to get something commissioned, which is good.
Amazing. So I did my homework that you asked me to from the video.
Oh, I can't remember what that was.
It was, what's the difference between a lake and a pond?
Oh, okay.
Because at the top, just down from the top of Thorncombe Wood, there's a pond.
Mm-hmm.
And it was rather lovely, wasn't it? We hid from the rain in the pond, by the pond.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite a loose definition, lake or a pond. Mm-hmm. Generally, it's not to do with the surface area or the location or the volume of water. It's more to do with the depth.
Okay.
So ponds are generally shallow, and that means you can have vegetation growing in the pond, like aquatic weed and stuff, and lilies and reeds that could grow all the way across a pond because the pond never gets more than 3 foot deep, 4 foot deep. The light will penetrate the ground, the base of the pond, and plants will be able to grow. Whereas a lake is generally deeper in parts. Mm-hmm. Usually the middle. Mm-hmm. So the light can't penetrate down to the lake bed. So you get areas where it's too deep for any plants to grow.
Yeah, there we go.
So there we are.
Interesting. And for such an avid fisherman as yourself, interesting. Didn't know that. I thought you said it was something to do about jumping over it. Or was that there was from a stream and a river?
I think that I've heard that with streams and brooks and rivers. There's lots of different terminologies for those, and people have I think most people have a general idea that a river is bigger than a stream and bigger than a brook and the likes, but that's. So as a fly, do you call yourself a fly fisherman, or what's there a term? I call myself a fly angler.
A fly angler.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
We don't use fisher persons,
okay.
Anglers.
Okay, so would you ever angle in a lake or a pond, or is it only in rivers?
The fishing I do is in rivers because the trout or the grayling we're after are wild. We don't. Rainbow trout are not a native species, but some people do stock rainbow trout into lakes, into reservoirs. And you generally in the UK you can pay to fish those, but any fish you catch you have to keep. So a lot of people do it to stock the larder up for the kitchen, and you'll, depending on how you set out in the morning and you say I want a ticket for 2 fish, or a ticket for 3 fish, or a ticket for 4 fish.
Okay.
And once you've caught that, your limit, then you stop.
It's just like sport shopping then, really.
Yeah, some days it's really easy and you catch them really quickly, and other days you might pay for 4 fish and not catch any. But
I imagine there's a difference about angling in moving water to still water.
Yeah, definitely. Still water is great for beginners. It's a bit easier. Rivers are more dynamic, more alive, more challenging.
Yeah. So you're more of a river person then, and I'm more of a lake person then. We're going by these definitions.
Yeah.
What do you think these Borstal boys saw up on the Roman road?
I think they all got together and decided to play a hoax with everyone going on the same story.
Yeah.
Or they just saw some dodgy bloke in the woods.
Yes, because this is not the only phantom Centurion floating around these parts either, is there? There's where's the one who taps on the windows of your car windows?
Yes. I think that's in one of Bournemouth's dogging car parks.
Yeah.
It's just a bloke dressed as a Centurion, so he's got easy access and leather sandals.
No, but I've definitely read a few other Roman ghosts.
Yeah, there's Roman legions, aren't there, as well?
Yeah, So another thing I was listening about, they were saying the impression we have of towns like Dorchester and Exeter being effectively little Rome, like a small Rome, is probably false. Do you remember I was saying to you that there's certain parts of what you would expect to find in a Roman town they haven't yet found in Dorchester. So, for example, the Forum, they would expect to find a Forum, and they've never found it in Dorchester. And there's some, but we found some of the best examples of a Roman townhouse with a mosaic.
Yeah.
And I was listening to a guy today saying that that his theory is, and from the archaeology he sees, is that in Britain, particularly the further away you got from places like, I think Colchester was the Roman capital, was that you would have small, almost like gated communities of like the Roman people.
Yeah.
Or but then the rest of it, they would just let the prisoners just carry on how they want to do it. Because it was so remote and so hostile. It wasn't worth them trying to push too much Romanness onto people, and people wouldn't just start living like Romans unless there was an incentive to them. And they was comparing it to Gaul, which is as we know from Asterix, modern day France. They were saying when Caesar conquered Gaul, he pretty much killed or enslaved 2/3 of the entire population. So they were completely overwhelmed, completely devastated. And it was a case of like, we are so over, it was just, Rome just basically came over and took over. So they effectively became a province of Rome, and everyone was like Roman. Whereas when they came to Britain, it was further away, had to get across the sea, and also we fought back.
It took them several attempts, didn't it? It was like 3 or 4 attempts,
and it was.
And I think you're right, because Colchester was probably the nearest to mini Rome, the biggest kind of settlement they had. But then London, because it was up the Thames and where the boats landed, it was mostly a kind of garrison where they would store all the goods that came in from Rome before they were shared across the network. There would be lots of retired soldiers just looking after it, and it was a kind of administrative centre really, where things just came in, and almost like a warehouse where they could log things in and log things out. So maybe as you went further southwest down to Dorchester and Exeter, it was very similar to that. And they were just kind of staging posts and garrisons.
It was just a case of like, we'll leave the locals alone as long as it's making money and we get taxes off them.
Yeah,
that's it. Apparently, Hengistbury Head was the main port around here. I think we'd come into Hengistbury Head and then come up from there.
And that, when you think about all the Roman activity around and how close it all was, you've got Maiden Castle, you've got Hengistbury Head. The Pool was a big natural harbour. Wareham was they found lots of Roman artefacts in some excavations and some clay pits and things they were digging. Why is there a ghost of a Roman road on the top of a hill?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
There's so many, like you said, but they would dig it up.
There's no danger of death up there.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, we got the graveyard of thousands of Romans just up the road. No one sees anything up there.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But same time, it's 14-year-old boys out in the woods, maybe a little bit frightened, maybe never been out in the woods on their own before. I could see it could be a bit spooky.
Maybe one of the adults just dressed up as a lark, went out there, kind of hung himself from a tree somehow, went, ooh, and then disappeared when the game was up.
Yeah, but
let's go on.
I was going to say, when I used to go camping in Delft Woods, which is near a pool, when I was a cub, we was always told that there was, they call it Dead Man's Lake, but I'm pretty sure it was a pond. where they said a German bomber had crashed, and that if anyone went into the water, they would be pulled underneath the water by the dead German bomber pilots. Essentially, it was to tell us, it was to keep us out. It was
keep you away,
keep us away from the water, but also this is a good, scary story to tell the kids when we're out camping. So, yeah, who knows? These guys might have been trying to shit up the kids about Roman soldiers.
Yeah. Before we stop, we should talk about the Sasquatch noises we heard in the woods, which was absolutely phenomenal. So, for a long time, I've watched Bigfoot hunters and love it to bits. I've got a Bigfoot hunter sticker on my van. And one of the things that Bigfoot hunters always do, of course, is they call out to Bigfoot in the forest and wait for a reply. We had just been, I believe, it was probably the week after, or maybe the next, the week after. So the week before, we'd gone to a fancy dress party, hadn't we?
Yes.
The four of us, you and I with our other halves, and we dressed as Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo gang, as zombies. And you were taking the mick out of me because I couldn't do a Scooby-Doo noise all night after several beers. So I stood in the middle of Thorncombe Wood and tried to make a Sasquatch noise / Scooby-Doo howl.
Are we going to do it first?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. And we waited in the rain. And then for the first time ever, we heard a similar call coming back to us.
Yeah.
From the other side of the woods. And the pause in between, I think, was far too long for it to be an echo.
Yeah.
On the video, it's like the sound stopped working on the video, but you can see the shocked look on our face and then the laughing as we realised that we're filming just over the road from Yellowham Woods.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it would have all been one wood where this wood was that were meant to be living. We've called out and something's called back. So
several times.
You did it. You did it after me, didn't you? Yeah. With a proper belly scream, howl, and again, something howled back. Yeah.
Which
amazing.
Is great. So, which is interesting because also, because if you look on YouTube, as well as our video for people searching for the woodrows of Yellowham Woods, there's another couple of investigators put their own video up. And when we was watching it, we said, this isn't Yellowham Woods. It didn't match.
It's not tall Yellowham.
No, but when we looked at it, we realised it was actually Thorncombe Woods it was in. So we don't know if they mistaken
it. Same car park, walked up the track, looked very much like the track we walked up. There were horses in the trees. Theirs is filmed at night, and I can imagine it is spooky at night, but nothing called back to them.
No, but did they hear anything?
They heard some things in the trees, but it's difficult to hear on their video and difficult to see because it was dark, of course. Obviously, it's difficult to hear on ours because the sound failed. But to this day, it is the best Bigfoot hunting moment I've ever had. Yeah, it was just phenomenal.
I'm sorry, listeners, but we can't share what we heard. But on that video, we do hear some horns blaring, which the first time we heard it, I said, that sounds like a Roman horn. Second time, I realised it was a train.
Roman train.
But the howling, shouting, hollering was either, like we said, some other Bigfoot hunters just over the hill, thinking we were Bigfoots and we were shouting back and forth to each other.
It could have been that other podcast.
So that was our investigation into the phantom Centurion of Thorncombe Woods. Mainly us talking about Romans around Dorchester. But someday something a bit more supernatural may happen, and we can talk more about that.
We'll be there to film it badly.
Yeah,
and we'll have the sound turned on this time. And it won't be natural.
Oh, so we've got a couple of things I would like to plug while I'm on here. We've got some Dark Dorset stickers and badges and T-shirts. If you go to darkdorset.com, there's links where you can find all of these things. If you're interested in any of that and would like to help support the podcast, go and have a look at those. So that's darkdorset.com. Also, I've written a spooky story, which I would like people to read. Did I send it to you, David?
No.
Okay. So I will I'll put a link to that on our Dark Dorset link tree as well. So just go to darkdorset.com, follow a link to Ross's spooky story. Have a go and read that, and let me know what you think. And I hope you have a good Christmas, and we will be back soon with some other stuff.
We will. Let's do one soon.
Okay, cool. Thanks, everyone. Speak to you soon.
Cheerio.
Bye.
If you knows of any weirdness you'd like to share with Dave and Ross, you can tell them by email at darkdorset@gmail.com or talk to them on Twitter at darkdorset. Well, until next time, stay discombobulated.